Welcome, everybody, to your Sunday edition of The Expendable Show. I'm your host, The Expendable. Right behind me, my two books that I wrote, spent lots of time researching and writing, The Swiss Effect and From the Mouth. If you like my show, like, subscribe, and ding the bell. It helps my show grow. Thank you very much, everybody who tunes in and watches. I think my show averages have gone up quite a bit, actually. So thank you for that. So let's get into our weekly statistics. So Doge, so we're still at 180 billion on the Doge website, which is $1,118.01, 01. On the debt clock, they've got Doge has saved $510 billion, which is $4,544 per taxpayer. The price of eggs is 2024 was $4.15. Joe Biden's eggs, they were very expensive. Now we're at $2.63 on average. So good job, President Trump. Gas prices continue to go down, and there's still room to go. I was just talking to my dad about this the other day, where we still think the price of oil is gonna continue to go down. So we're looking for some. We're already seeing. The price of gas go down exponentially just in Trump's first 6 months. I expect to see it go down even more. We could be seeing $40 barrels of oil here before long. It would not surprise me one bit. But the Joe Biden gas prices were $3.30 a gallon. Gives me a headache. I just saw Hakeem Jeffries on TV. I almost puked in my mouth. But today's gas prices on average are $3.13. In Locust Grove this morning, when I got up at 5 in the morning for some reason and went to the gym, it was $2.44, $2.50, $2.44. That's right. It's $2.44 a gallon. So we're doing good here. Actually, I think Locust Grove has the cheapest gas in all of Metro Atlanta. It's insane how cheap our gas is here. I think it's because we have the Tanger outlet, the outlet malls, where everything's on discount. So our gas must be part of the discounts. That's a joke. It wasn't that funny though. Mortgage rates in 2024 on average 6.7% according to Zillow. Today we're at 6.98. So Jerome Powell, you still have this problem. You need to adjust the interest rates. This is a stupid game you're playing. Everything is improving except the mortgage rates. He is so far behind. We should be down in the low sixes right now. 6.1 is where we should be at, and we should be heading towards sub 6. But Jerome Powell wants to play games, so we're still above Joe Biden's average on the mortgage rates. The Dow Jones on Friday closed at 42,762. So that took a big jump after the jobs report came out, and it was better than expected. So the market adjusted to that and was in favor of Trump's jobs report. So good job, President Trump. So the first thing I want to talk about today is something that I've been paying attention to here in Georgia for a long time. And this is something that I've just recently started to dabble into. I've been paying attention to a young man here in Georgia who I would give the equivalent to of how Pennsylvania has Scott Presler. Georgia now has our Scott Presler. And he's going to do it a little bit different, and we're going to go over it. But we have Jaquan Stembridge. Now, I first got hip to Jaquan Stembridge at Republican Collins's Mike Collins. I know there's a lot of Collinses out there. Mike Collins's surf and turf event. I noticed too all the politicians were, but there was a young man in there that worked that room better than everybody else. And I was like, man, who is this kid? He's baby face. He's like, who? I thought he was somebody's kid, or he was part of a high school group like Young Republicans, or like a college group, Young Republicans. So I'm like trying to figure this kid out. I'm like, who is this kid? And he's just working the room, table to table to table, person to person to person. And finally, I do what I always do. I sit at the very back so I can watch everybody. And finally, Jaquan gets to my table, and he doesn't miss me. He comes up and he shakes my hand and thanked me for attending. And so then I started doing I was sitting right there doing research. I was like, who is this kid? And then I finally got the name Jaquan Stembridge. And I said, I'm gonna watch this kid and see what he does. And I shouldn't call him a kid because he's an adult, but he's younger than me, so he's a kid. All my kids are kids, and they're all in their 20s. So Jaquan Stembridge was running for assistant secretary of the GOP here in Georgia. And I kept thinking as I was learning more about this young man, I was like, man, does he stand a chance? Because Georgia is full of like GOP, like old money, good old boys. I'm like, man, this kid, I feel bad for him because he's about to get stomped by all this old money. But he defied the odds, and he blew out Kylie Kramer to become the assistant secretary of the GOP here in Georgia. Now, that's huge because he campaigned on some very, very interesting things that I think is going to be a game changer here in Georgia. I think we're going to see a lot of people flip red in Georgia because of this young man. So I went through, I've done all my homework on him. I've watched every interview he's been in. I've watched we're Facebook friends. He actually accepted my Facebook friend request. And I have, sent him a few messages, reached out. I wanted to get him on the show, but obviously I'm a small fish in a big pond. So maybe if I get to like the size of like a big catfish, maybe I'll be able to get him on the show. But he knows who I am now, and that's a good thing. He jumped. I watched him because I gave him all my socials. He jumped over and checked out my TikTok page because it tells you who goes and looks. He looked, so he's doing his homework too, and I like that. So Jaquan, I'm gonna tag you in this when I'm done doing this, so you can watch all the awesome things that I say about you. So he did, he was on a podcast here in Georgia called the Voices of Rural America. It's a very good podcast. An older gentleman does it, and he knows his stuff, and it's very organized and it's very well done. So Jaquan, he was on the podcast. He mapped out his plan to engage young conservatives, particularly Generation Z. Now, Trump actually did very well with Generation Z. However, as everyone knows, Trump is not going to be our president forever. So somebody has to get in there and do the work to keep the youth motivated to stay on the conservative side of things. Because if we don't continue to pay attention to what the youth is saying, they're going to go find somebody who will listen to them. And the last thing we want is to have them turn into radicals. And we'll get into the repercussions of that here in a second, because we've got that end of the spectrum going on all over the place too. So he talked about how he became awakened. So for those of you who don't know, Jaquan is from Union Point, Georgia, which is a little tiny town south. It's like southeast of Athens. Kind of, if you take 20 like out of Atlanta, eventually you're going to get like really close to Union Point, like you're heading towards South Carolina. So he said that he got that he was awakened to conservative values during COVID. And then he went and he founded the District 10 Young Republicans group, which District 10 is the same district that Representative Mike Collins is part of. See, he said that he had never really heard the conservative messages before the year 2020. and it intrigued him. And he said, "Hey, that kind of matches my value system." So it was good. I'm not. He doesn't specifically say what message he heard or who he heard it from. And that would be a good question I would like to ask him. Like what was the literature or the speech that you heard that brought you over to the conservative side, or what happened that specifically that flipped you over. He goes on to talk about that as a Black Trump supporter and District 10 communication director. He contrasts Republican emphasis on individual liberty and safety with Democratic control and intolerance of dissent. I love that description, and he's right on with that. We have to push for the youth to understand the difference between utilizing your constitutional privileges without overdoing it. And that's where some of the youth, I think, is struggling, because they don't understand where that line is at. And so I'm hoping that Jaquan is going to get out there and say, look, here's what as a voter, as a young voter, and as a future voter, this is the responsibilities that you have. And here is where that line is. And we're going to talk about that line, because that line's being crossed right now all over the country. So we're going to get to that. So Jaquan's background, he's a double major in finance and political science at the University of North Georgia. He was active in student government. He substitute teaches. He's active at church. He plays the drums for the worship team. Like, this is your all-American conservative kid right here. And I'm telling you, this kid's impressive. I'm going to tell you right now, he is not a very big kid or a big man. He's a little guy. He's smaller than me. And for those of you who don't know, or those of you who do know, I'm 5'6", but I mean, I'm husky. But Jaquan is a little guy, but he's big in stature. Like, he lights up the room. He was the biggest light in that room when I first saw him. And so I don't have any doubts in his ability to lead, because I think he fully understands how to compensate, for his size, and he uses his words and his positive energy to really jump out there and do good things. So I'm really impressed by this kid. So he was just elected, as we talked. He is the assistant secretary of the Georgia GOP. So he says, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to work year round, not just during election cycles, to promote the party's identity and values. I like that. If you go in there and you do that, Jaquan, you're going to be very successful. He aims to build coalitions with team and college Republicans, noting that Democrats already target schools in Black communities, while the next generation isn't seeking Republicans. So he's going to try to bridge that gap. And I think it's a brilliant idea. It's something we've talked about on the show. It's something that when Shauna's on the show, she talks a lot about, that nobody listens to the Black community, and the Democrats just keep stomping all over them every chance they get. So I think having somebody come in there and really saying, look, we do share a lot of the same, value systems. We share a lot of the same beliefs. Why can't we come together and talk about this on a positive note? Try to pull some people over to the conservative side. It's doable. So in his post-election remarks, Jaquan expressed gratitude for the support he received and reiterated his commitment to fostering inclusivity and energizing the party's base. He stated, it's time for a new generation to step up and lead. Together, we will work to ensure that the Georgia GOP remains strong and united. His election marks a notable shift towards embracing youth leadership within the Georgia Republican Party, signaling a potential new direction as the party prepares for upcoming elections. So why this is important. So I was a member of the Gwinnett County GOP. So the Gwinnett County GOP is very significant amongst the GOP in Georgia. There's a lot of members of the Gwinnett GOP. A lot of the very powerful GOP members come from Gwinnett County. So I've been to enough where a lot of them know who I am. The former chairman, Sammy Baker, he knows who I am. I've spent a lot of time talking to these guys, and some of the politicians that are in that area are like Georgia Representative Ray Martinez, who used to be my mayor of Loganville. I know these people, and one thing that I always criticized was that they did not. It's an old party. It's an old party. One thing that they were not doing is they were not thinking outside of the box and going, how do we bring the youth in? And so I think someone like Jaquan to come in here with a GOP leadership role that he has and his motivation to run around and put the legwork in with his group of guys. And he does have a group of guys that run with him. And I watch them too. And they're good, just like him. And so I'm going to be paying attention to that. And I'm going to be offering as much support to Jaquan and his movement as possible. I think he's on to something big. I think he is going to be Georgia's Scott Pressler, which that's good. In my opinion, that's a huge honor. I think Scott Pressler was the person who won Donald Trump the presidency. So that's how big I think of Jaquan. And he's a winner. He's going to be up in the state politics here before long, and then pretty soon he'll be in federal Congress somewhere at some point. So I'm very, very happy with what I saw out of him, and I look forward to bigger things out of him in the future. So let's move on to the big mess all over the country that happened over the weekend. We have riots. Oh, I'm sorry. The Summer of Love Part 2. I'm having a real tough time with this because I don't understand how people like Maxine Waters is not in jail. I don't understand how people like Tim Walz is not in jail. Why is Gavin Newsom not in jail? Why is the LA mayor, what's her name, Bass? Why is she not in jail? These people have done absolutely nothing. It started off in Minneapolis, where Tim Walz got on social media and everywhere else and on TV, he's like, well, we gotta bully Trump. We gotta push back. We gotta get mean. And then 2 days later, a riot happens, and where they're assaulting it was federal agents that weren't even immigration agents. I think they were Homeland Security. But they were assaulting. The people were rioting in Minneapolis. And then over the weekend, Los Angeles blows up and starts assaulting the ICE agents. So we're going to go over that, and then we're going to talk about the consequences of what I think should be happening. So federal immigration authorities said some of the immigrants arrested in the LA area last week had criminal histories that included assault and drug offenses. And that's not counting the major ones. So nearly 45 people were arrested, and it's still going on. I'm literally watching it on TV right now. This group is still here. It's probably doubled in size since I took the report this morning. And there's a lot going on. And as soon as it gets dark, it's probably going to turn stupid. Like every time it gets dark, all the masked Antifa come out and they want to start firebombing everything. So I would expect this to turn ridiculous. When I wake up in the morning, I'm going to turn the news on. I'm going to go, yep, it turned ridiculous. Absolutely right, Colin. We need Team America. I just had like 5 of the Team America songs just pop in my head. Like, you're worthless, Alec Baldwin. That was one of my favorite ones. And Alec Baldwin is still worthless. That's the best part. You are worthless, Alec Baldwin. That's the greatest movie ever made. I don't care what anybody says. Team America is the best. We need Team America. They'll come in here and they'll take all them bridges out. They don't care. But ICE officers, they tried to raid 2 Home Depot stores part of the fashion district, a donut shop, and they raided a couple other businesses. One man had already been sent back to Mexico after being picked up at a Home Depot on Friday morning. During the demonstrations, David Huerta, who's president of the SEIU of California, which is a labor union, was arrested and charged with impeding a federal agent while protesting. I like that. If you're going to try to get in the way of these arrests, you're going to jail. That's how it should be. If I go try to stop my neighbor from getting arrested, which I would hope not, he's a city councilman, but let's say, for instance, I try to stop him from getting arrested, I can expect that they are going to arrest me for something. So that's how it works. If you try to impede an arrest, you're going to get arrested yourself. At the warehouse in the Fashion District, agents executed a search warrant on Friday after a judge found there was probable cause that the employer was using fictitious documents for some of its workers, which that's what a lot of them are doing. I can guarantee, I know this because I dealt with this at my former employer. These guys will come in and they've got people all over the city of Atlanta that are making fake documents, and all they got to do is have an ID that looks legit, that matches up with the name that's on a social security card that looks legit. As employees, or as people who hire people, I'm not a Secret Service agent. I'm not a detective. I don't have the forensics ability to put this under a microscope and go, is it fraudulent or not? I'm going to look at it and I'm going to go, well, the social security number and the name match the social security number and name on the license, so that must be who they are. That's the best I can do as somebody who hires people. So this does happen a lot. Now, if I was to help them do it, then I would have been guilty of probably several felonies, which I didn't. We kicked them out and say, hey, show up when you got all your documents match up. So President Donald Trump deployed the California National Guard troops to Los Angeles on Saturday after 2 days of clashes between protesters and federal immigration authorities in riot gear. Now, for one, the LAPD was slow to the game because they were not dispatched right away, because obviously the politicians in California, and especially in Los Angeles, are incompetent to do their job. So once they finally did, they were already overwhelmed, and they were the protesters were already rioting and throwing things at the police. So Trump said, hey, this is already out of control. The National Guard is now under my command and they're going in. So right now, there's not really a lot going on. People aren't really attacking the police, but they're still there, and the size of the groups have doubled. So I would expect something to happen eventually. The troublemakers will show up here pretty soon. Then you have Gavin Newsom starts tweeting, we didn't have any problems until Donald Trump showed up. Come on, man. We're watching this in real time. Governor Newsom, we know what's happening. You didn't do anything. Your LA mayor didn't do anything. And the crowds are now jaywalking. And you want to sit here and say, oh, they're just executing their constitutional right. That's not how protests work. You have to go downtown and you have to apply for a permit, and then they tell you where you can protest. This is not an organized protest. This is disorderly conduct. This is blocking the flow of traffic. This is assaulting officers. This is a riot. And this should be dealt with like that. And luckily, we have a president who has a brain enough to send the right people down there to say, okay, you want to do this? We're going to do it. And it's not going to work out for you at all. So I'm very, I don't want to see people get hurt, but if you're going to FA, you're going to FO. So that's what's going to happen. Some of the people that have been arrested already. Rolando Veneracion Enriquez, 55, he's from the Philippines, has a criminal history that includes burglary in California, for which he was sentenced to 4 years in prison sexual something with a foreign object, with force and assault, with the intent to rape in the city of Pomona, for which he was sentenced to 37 years in prison. I'm not sure how this guy's out. I don't know how he got out of prison. 37 years is a long time. You think he'd never get out. He was arrested Saturday. Jose Gregorio Mendrada Ortiz from Ecuador, which Ecuador is not a very nice country. He was arrested Friday and served administrative deportation. His criminal history includes being sentenced to more than 11 years in prison for conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute 5 kilos of cocaine while on board a boat in Tampa, Florida. I happen to have a relative who used to be in that kind of business, and he went and did 10 years. So, and it was in Tampa. Maybe it's part of the same organization. Who knows? But when you traffic in that amount of cocaine, which is probably pure, so you take that and you probably multiply, I don't know what they're chopping cocaine up at nowadays, but I would guess you could at least times 2, it's, let's say. So you're looking at, you got 10 kilos of chopped up cocaine all over Tampa. That's a lot of cocaine. That's some Tony Montana shit right there. But he's out. They deported him. Armando Ordaz, he's 42 for 44. He's from Mexico. He was arrested Friday. He's an alleged gang member of Bratz 13 who has a criminal history that includes, I wonder if it's like the Bratz dolls. He dressed up like the Bratz dolls. So he's got a history of sexual battery in L.A. He got 135 days in jail, 5 years probation for that somehow. He was also sentenced to 90 days in jail and 3 years probation for receiving known or stolen property in Norwalk, and sentenced to 365 days in jail and 4 years probation for petty theft. So there's another shithead. Victor Mendoza Aguilar, 32 of Mexico, is arrested on Friday and has a criminal history in Pasadena that includes being sentenced to 112 days in jail for possessing unlawful paraphernalia, being sentenced to 16 months in jail for possessing controlled substance, being sentenced to 4 years behind bars for assault with a deadly weapon, after being sentenced to 364 days in jail for obstructing a public officer. He's an active member of the Villa Boys gang and was previously removed from the U.S. in 2017. So he's a multiple deportation gang member. Now we have, I'm going to go through a few more. Delfino Aguilar Martinez, 51 of Mexico, was arrested on Friday and served the notice to appear. His criminal history includes assault with a deadly weapon with great bodily injury in L.A. He was sentenced to a year in jail. So these are some of the greatest people that have come across the border. We have Jesus Alan Hernandez Morales, 26 of Mexico, was removed from the U.S. on Saturday, deported. His criminal history includes being sentenced in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which I've been there, very nice little town. He was sentenced to 239 days in jail for conspiracy to transport an illegal migrant. So he's a human trafficker. Last one, Lionel Sanchez Laguna, 55 of Mexico, was arrested on Tuesday. He has a criminal history in the city of Orange that includes being sentenced to 365 days in jail for discharging a firearm at an inhabitant dwelling and vehicle. So it's like a drive-by, it sounds like. Being sentenced to 4 years probation for battery on a spouse or cohabitant. Being sentenced to 4 years probation for willful cruelty to a child. Being sentenced to 10 days in jail for driving under the influence. Being sentenced to 3 years behind bars for assault with a semi-automatic firearm, being sentenced to 3 years behind bars for personal use of a firearm. Boy, that guy's got a long rap sheet. He likes guns and assaulting people. He could probably be part of the NRA. So also, New York City had riots going on, although, yeah. Right, Colin. Now, New York City's riots are not nearly as big as LA because you know what happened? The difference between the two is the NYPD don't fuck around. They came out there and said, nope, you're not doing this. And so they quickly were able to maintain control in New York City. So hats off to Mayor Adams. I know he owes Trump a solid And he's doing his thing. So good job, Mayor Adams. I used to not like you, but you seem to be coming around after you found out that as soon as you turn your back on a Democrat, they will stick a knife in your back as far as they possibly can and twist it several times. So there you go. Thank you. The Department of Homeland Security released a statement on Saturday noting that it took LAPD 2 hours to respond to the federal building where everybody started going, despite multiple calls to get there. Like, hey, there's a riot going on at a federal building. LAPD's going, yeah, hold on. We'll get there when we get there. So, yeah, there's that. So to go on, so Friday night, over 1,000 rioters surrounded that building and assaulted ICE officers, slashed tires, defaced the building, and taxpayer-funded property. Wow, that sounds worse than what happened at J6. Like, this isn't an insurrection. It looks like an insurrection to me. Officials said that the LA riots and assaults on ICE agents came after Democrat politicians, including New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who's the biggest hack on the planet, Mayor Michelle Wu from Boston, we all know she's a hack, and Minnesota Governor Tampon Timmy Waltz, and LA Mayor Karen Bass. I should remember that because she's a Karen. They villainized and demonized the ICE agents. So that's made everybody go, well, okay, well, if our leaders don't like ICE, then we're okay to assault them. The violent targeting of law enforcement in LA by lawless rioters is despicable, and Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom must call for it to end. And that was by the Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin, who wrote in a statement, the men and women of ICE put their lives on the line to protect and defend the lives of American citizens. From comparisons to the modern-day Nazi Gestapo to glorifying rioters, the violent rhetoric of these sanctuary politicians is beyond the pale. This violence against ICE must end. They have gaslit these people. This is an insurrection. This is a federal violation, and I would call it an attempted coup. So I think that there should be harsh repercussions for this behavior. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who has the most beautiful eyes on the planet, she went on X Saturday afternoon with a strong message to protesters. She said, "You will not stop us or slow us down. ICE will continue to enforce the law. And if you lay a hand on a law enforcement officer, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." Then ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons described what took place in Los Angeles on Friday as appalling. He said, as rioters attacked federal ICE and law enforcement officers on LA streets, Mayor Bass took to the side of the chaos and lawlessness over law enforcement. These violent rioters will be held accountable if they harm federal officers. And make no mistake, ICE will continue to enforce our nation's immigration laws and arrest criminal legal immigrants. Aliens. He said aliens. So it could be from another planet. We're not sure. The LA County Sheriff's Office told Fox Digital its personnel responded to the 6400 block of Paramount Boulevard at 11 a.m. local time for a large crowd gathering in the area, blocking traffic. They put out a statement that said, "We remind the public to exercise their right to protest peacefully with respect for the safety of all community members. Our primary responsibility is to ensure public safety for all individuals present, both demonstrators and residents and bystanders, by addressing potential safety concerns while supporting the safe and lawful expression of the First Amendment rights." Like I said, there's a line that you don't cross, and I'm pretty sure nobody has a permit to protest. Military helicopters were also spotted responding to the scene. So I like seeing that. Looks like we may be having somewhat of a standoff right now in Los Angeles on a freeway. It looks like the LAPD is pushing a group of morons backwards. Yeah. One thing you notice when you watch all the footage, probably 90% of the people are masked up and they all look like stupid ass college kids. So, the actual Hispanics that are involved are not really too much in the direct mix of things. Because I think they know, like, I don't want to get deported. Anyway, so back to New York. So an anti-ICE protest gathered outside the Jacobs Javits Federal Building in Lower Manhattan, reportedly attempting to block a van from leaving the facility. They tried to block a van. That's gangster. The NYPD told Fox News that around noon Saturday, police responded to a 911 call about a disorderly group in front of the building. The demonstrators were instructed verbally numerous times to vacate the roadway and did not comply. Outside a federal law enforcement building in New York City, more than 150 rioters erupted to interfere with ICE's immigration enforcement operations. Thankfully, unlike in LA, the local police department quickly responded to the riots. So far, NYPD has made 5 arrests. Secretary Noem's message to rioters is clear: you will not stop us to slow us down. Same message she said earlier. And then she went on to say, this is what American justice looks like. So everybody's pretty impressed with Mayor Adams. Good job. Get the NYPD out there. Keep it under control before stupid stuff happens. New York really can't afford to have stupid things happen. They already have enough stupid things that happen. Now, on to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So the left's plan backfired miserably on them. So Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia from Salvador, he was deported, and then they cried, and everybody went down there and they drank margaritas, and then they were cried enough to where they brought him back. Trump's like, fine, bring him back. Bring him back. He was in the El Salvador ECOT prison, which is nasty. I would never want to go to ECOT because I like to converse with people, and those people aren't allowed to talk. So Abrego Garcia has landed in the United States to face justice. So what they did was Trump left him there long enough so that the Department of Justice could dig every aspect of this dude's life. And they found so much dirt on him that as soon as he touched down, now he's got an indictment. So it was a brilliant idea. Good job, Donald Trump. Good job, Pam Bondi, although I really don't like you all that much, but you did a good job on that one. So a grand jury in the Middle District of Tennessee returned a sealed indictment charging him with alien smuggling and conspiracy. According to the indictment, Abrego Garcia played a significant role in human smuggling ring operating for nearly a decade. So they've done their homework on this guy. Bondi described him as a full-time smuggler who made more than 100 trips transporting women, children, and MS-13 gang-affiliated persons throughout the U.S. He traded the innocence of minor children for profit. Children were among these allegedly trafficked. The indictment filed under seal last month includes 2 felony counts. Tennessee Highway Patrol body cam footage from a 2022 traffic stop where troopers pulled over Abrego Garcia for speeding. Inside his vehicle were 8 other men raising immediate suspicions. He's hauling these people for money, one trooper said. So the troopers, they've seen it all. They know what time it is. Tennessee Highway Patrol body cam, I already said that. Troopers found $1,400 in cash and flagged Abrego Garcia in the National Crime Information Center. So these guys did their due diligence. They did the right thing. Good job, Tennessee State Highway Patrol. That helped Pam Bondi out tremendously, which returned a gang terrorism alert. ICE was called, but they never responded. I wonder why. What changed since then, Pam Bondi says? Oh, well, we got a new president, somebody who actually lets ICE do their job, as opposed to the auto pen who didn't let the ICE do their job. The grand jury also heard allegations that Abrego Garcia trafficked firearms, narcotics, and solicited explicit images of a minor. He is even accused by a co-conspirator of being involved in the murder of a rival gang member's mother. He's such a good Maryland citizen. He would never do these things. He's from Maryland. He's not a gang member. Of Of course not. He faces up to 10 years in prison for each person he is charged with trafficking. So good. Get him, Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi also thanked El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, which I'm 50-50 on Nayib Bukele. He did round up every gang member and got him off the street. So I threw them all in prison, basically with no, it's basically a giant RICO roundup. Threw them all in jail, no trial, no nothing. They're just there indefinitely. I mean, their crime went down significantly. I mean, we obviously can't get away with that here in the United States, but the thought of it sounds refreshing. Although I may get rounded up in that, unfortunately. This is what American justice looks like. So the DOJ made a decision. I think that decisions are very, very good, said Trump on board Air Force One later that afternoon. The man has a horrible past, and I could see a decision being made. Bring him back. Show everybody how horrible this guy is, which they did. The Justice Department's grand jury indictment against Abrego Garcia proves the unhinged Democrat Party was wrong, and their stenographers in the fake news media were once again played like fools. Abrego Garcia was never an innocent Maryland man. He's an illegal alien terrorist, gang member, and human trafficker. Democrat lawmakers like Senator Chris Van Hollen and the so-called journalists who defended this criminal must immediately apologize to his victims. I agree 100%. Now that the truth will set you free, UFC 316 happened Saturday night. I'm a huge UFC fan. I used to fight back in the day. I wasn't very good at it, but I still did it. Let me tell you something. When they lock that cage behind you, that is like a reality check. Like, oh shit, there's one way out of here and I can't run nowhere. So it's something when you hear that lock get put on there. They do padlock you in there. It's terrifying. But you gotta forget it. Okay, there's a grown-ass man across there from me that wants to smash my brains in, so I better do something. Once again, Trump was there sitting beside Dana White. Trump gets a standing ovation. They start chanting him USA like normal. So there were two main event fights. Kayla Harrison was supposed to fight Juliana Pena Juliana Pena was the champion. So Kayla Harrison, she was a gold medal winner in judo in the Tokyo Olympics. She submitted Juliana Pena in the second round. First thing she did was went out, climbed out of the cage, went over to President Trump, strapped him up with the heavyweight with the championship belt, and gave him his respect. Next, the main event was Merab Devashvili. I'm pretty sure he's from Dagestan, which is part of Russia. He was the defending champ, and he fought Sugar Sean O'Malley, which, sorry, Isaac, my nephew who fights, he's trained with Sugar Sean O'Malley. It's his favorite fighter. Sugar Sean went down, and he was submitted by Merab Devashvili. Milli Vanilli. I shouldn't disrespect him. I just can't say his name. There's a lot going on there. I'd have to like sound it out like I'm in first grade. Hold on, let me do it. Devashvili. There. I think I got it. One of those two is right. So he's the champ. First thing he did, hopped out, went down to President Trump, gave him his respect. Now, why is that important? Both champions went down and relinquished control, relinquished power over to President Trump in the ultimate sign of respect. When you're the champion, there's no one better than you. And then you look down and you see a real champion, Donald Trump. They went and relinquished that power to the president of the United States. No one's doing that for Joe Biden. No one's doing that for Barack Obama. No one's doing that for Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton or George Bush or George H.W. Bush. They did it for Donald Trump because fighters know what a real fighter looks like. Fighters know what a real champion looks like. And I would have done the same if I was ever have won a belt, which never happened. I did fight George St. Pierre's stepbrother. So does that count for something? He choked me out. But that was a big thing. And I like seeing that. And a lot of people just play it off. Oh, they're just sucking Trump's ass. No, that's not what's going on. They're showing respect. And I think a lot of times we forget what respect looks like because we live in a society where respect isn't given anymore. And so I really like that the UFC has a habit of showing respect, especially to the world leader, not only our nation's leader, but the leader of the free world. And they understand how it works. Because in the fight world, respect is always given to people who fight. So that's all I've got for the show for the day. I'll be back on Wednesday, maybe. Yeah, I have to drive to Alabama to Selma. So I hope I will be back in time with a big giant stack of money from my big deal I'm trying to go down there and make. So most likely I'll be back in time to do the show. But if not, I'll reschedule it for Thursday. But I'm out. Everybody be safe. And everybody check out Jaquan Stembridge. This kid's a rising star. I'm out. Peace.